Hello and welcome to the Making It in Asheville podcast. This is the Asheville podcast where we sit down with local business owners, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and we ask them what they are making and how they are making it in Asheville. And this season is a very special season. We're doing an e-commerce focused season. And you might notice, if you're watching on YouTube, probably not notice if you're listening on a regular podcast app. But if you're watching on YouTube, and I recommend that you do, we're in a very beautiful space with lights, green chairs, a cool table. And I am joined by none other than Jami Daniels of Ernest LLC, one of the coolest and most interesting businesses that has come into my purview in the last year or two. And it's been wonderful to kind of fall into your orbit. Hello and welcome, Jami.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for being here.
And it's fun to say that because we're in your space. And thank you for being here on the podcast. If you could, again, folks watching on YouTube, big giant room, awesome, beautiful space. How big is Ernest? Where are we in Asheville right now? Just to kind of get the coordinates dialed in.
Like literally where are we located in space?
Yeah.
This is Sweeten Creek Road. We're right off exit 51 off 40, conveniently located. Somehow manages to be close to everything. We're close to east and west and south. Right near Biltmore. It is in what Atelier Maison is trying to create as the Asheville Design District.
I just saw a big sign about Asheville Design District last time I left Ernest. I'm open to calling this the Design District. Does that feel good to you?
Yeah,
cool.
I'm good with it. I think it's cool.
What? How big is the actual building that we're in right now?
The actual building is about 65,000 square feet.
For
Ernest.
Those keeping track at home. It feels huge. Like this room is like bigger than an apartment that I've had at a time in my life. So 65,000 square feet is hard for me to make sense of, but it's like warehouse big. It's bigger than most warehouses big. Yeah?
Well, I suppose so.
Okay.
Yeah. But Ernest is only in one portion of the entire building.
Okay.
So part of it is Devil's Foot Beverage Company, and the middle is our full service fulfillment operation. And then on this side is the co-warehouse. So where we're sitting today currently is the co-working piece of the co-warehouse.
Awesome. And would it be about 30,000 square feet if I'm trying to make the math?
Yeah, the whole thing is about 30,000 square feet.
Of the Ernest co-warehouse and co-working side.
Yeah.
Cool. Again, the office space that I'm used to is about 400 to 500 square feet. And so this feels absolutely massive and beautiful.
Thank you.
How long has Ernest been in existence so far?
We launched in March of 2023.
Wow. So it's fresh.
A few months.
So it's got that new car smell.
Yes.
And so we alluded to it. What is co-working? What is co-warehousing? What's going on at Ernest today?
Well, broadly,
yeah,
we're not really trying to compete per se with traditional co-working. Where co-working supports someone that works like on a computer or has maybe an administrative type function, Ernest, the co-warehouse, supports e-commerce. So it's really a little baby warehouse where you do your own fulfillment, you do your own orders, logistics. It just gives you a slice of a shared warehouse, where co-working is a shared office. This is a shared warehouse. So in the back, the spaces range from about 200 square feet to about 1,500 square feet.
Yeah.
So the idea is that it supports all facets of e-commerce, that there's a place, this office bit where you could take a meeting or, check your emails, have a cup of coffee, yada, yada. And in the back is where you would do the heavy lifting, do your order fulfillment, have your inventory.
I love it. One of the many business ideas that's come to mind since moving to Asheville was a bad version of this. Like I looked around, I saw all these like makers, all these craftspeople, all these folks doing some version or another of selling wares, and thought like, there's got to be some way to optimize some of the parts that probably aren't as fun for the average person, like packaging, like holding inventory, etc. And I thought like, oh, I'd buy like, I don't know, airplane hanger and just like figure it out. And this
That'd be pretty cool.
It could be. I mean, we'll see. Let's not write it out, cross it off. But the execution here is like pretty way better than anything I had dreamed of. And so 20 or so thousand square feet of individual like tiny warehouse storage setups. How did that even come up? How did you think to do that? Is there a model for this? That you've noticed? In other
yes,
cities?
like we did not invent the concept of co-warehousing.
Okay.
Like there is some of that popping up across the country, but we're certainly the first ones to do it here.
Yeah.
And the sense is that Asheville in particular has a lot of cottage industry. The Western North Carolina has a lot of cottage industry. Forgive me. And that Asheville in particular has a lot of people that moved here with their side hustle, post-pandemic especially, that people kind of, it seems like professionals our age kind of started looking at that side hustle a little harder. They enjoyed the longer bike rides every day. So the thought is that people were starting to really lean into their side hustle, starting to outgrow the garage, needing a place to scale. And then this gives them that. So this gives a place where an entrepreneur who's bursting at the seams, hogging up the whole garage, wife wants the dining room table back, they can now come here, have all the sweeteners of a warehouse, loading docks, pallet jacks, FedEx comes twice a day, all those kind of things that like are hard to manage at home. It's hard to accept a pallet at home, or, you're racing every day to get to the post office on time, or there's not really a good space like spread out and like fill orders and pack boxes. And that's what this provides.
Yeah. I mean, even compared to other office space. So, making it creative / making it in Asheville / my wife's business, QB Cucina, we've all worked in theory, both from home over the last 2 years or so in the pandemic world, but from a office in the heart of downtown Asheville. And, it just has become overgrown with Sarah's products for QB Cucina. It's not easy to receive products. The doors lock at 5 o'clock. If it's raining and she needs to bring stuff to UPS or FedEx, it's like, it's a mess. So there's all of these things, even if you do have your own office, that stink. And it does seem like you have addressed a large, if not all, of the issues.
Well, I think so, because it dovetails into our fulfillment operation.
Tell me more.
So we also could give somebody staff, like if you had a big order. I have somebody that's here currently that has an e-commerce operation, and they need like an hour or two of assistance every day. So she's not quite at that point where she could hire someone to help her, but she does need to help getting over that hump. So I have staff here. I have staff here to do receiving. Like you don't have to be down here every second of your life. Like we could receive a pallet for you, have it in your station, ready to go. We can do all kinds of different things to like help people, relabeling, a big order, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, it seems to me that there are so many parts of like running an e-commerce business. My wife knows better than I do, but so many parts of running an e-commerce business, and there are only really certain things that are worth getting good at, or like that she should work really hard to get better or smarter or faster at. And one of those things that I've always kind of flagged for her in consideration was like, we are currently holding all of the inventory and packaging all of the stuff. Aren't there things, I want to say 3PLs, third-party logistic providers, or pack and ship type, places, aren't there options where we can just send it to them and then they can do the packing? And her takeaway or point, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but has been something like, but if we control it, we can make sure that it's really, it's done beautifully, or like the attention to detail is there, and also it's expensive. This seems like something like a middle ground where, and to be clear, Sarah is probably your newest tenant and we're very excited to be here. But a middle ground where a lot of those issues of running a business that does its own fulfillment can be theoretically outsourced, or levels of efficiency can show up that you just can't do at home or do in your own office in some office building in Asheville currently.
Yeah, totes. I couldn't agree more soundly.
But is this, I guess, third-party logistics? Are you a pack and ship business as well? Is that in the mix? Because the ability to do support, where does that line stop? Is there a line that you draw in services you provide to tenants?
No, we do offer those services, and no, there is not a line drawn. So our company is founded basically. Should I start from the beginning here?
I was just about to say it might be time for me to transition to my second.
I was like,
second index card here, and say maybe it makes some sense to attempt to tell the full story of what's going on here. There is more happening in this building than just Ernest.
Yeah.
Let's try and understand some of the scope and take us as far back as we need to understand.
Well, Ernest is the co-warehouse and a full-service fulfillment operation. Okay. So we have customers that we do the entire shebang. We do trade show and conference management, and we do all kinds of product fulfillment. We do kitting. We do subscription boxes, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So our fulfillment operation is in the same building, and it dovetails into the co-warehouse. So that's kind of how we can make this model work, because we have staff here kind of anyway. So we have like hybrid models where we're doing part of the fulfillment, they're doing part of the fulfillment, or we do it all, or you could just hire us for an hour, 2 hours, whatever.
Wow.
So we can step in and help, or we can just do it. We are a 3PL.
Wow.
So we can just do the whole shebang.
And how long has that portion of the business, the fulfillment, and because the co-warehousing new model, fulfillment services, you've been doing for a while now? Question mark?
Yeah.
How long?
We have been doing fulfillment since 1957. So
okay.
It was
yeah. So not new, not a new.
No, it is not. We've been doing fulfillment since way before there was a word for it.
Yeah.
Like, our company is a company of firsts. So the fact that this is the first co-warehouse just kind of goes in with our whole company zeitgeist. But so when my grandfather came here to Asheville in 1948, he came here to die of tuberculosis. And in those days, like the air was prescribed. The Asheville air was prescribed.
Yeah.
And so he came here to die. He didn't die. My dad used to say, so we got to do something. So we started a company. So he went to a law firm in the Drummer Building downtown, which today is McGuire Wood. It wasn't at the time. But he kind of made a swap with them that if he could use their desk and typewriter at night for his own purposes, he would type their papers in the day for free. So they agreed, and he did, and he parlayed that into his own typewriter, which he set up shop and a bench in Pritchard Park, and he would type the papers for the surrounding businesses in Pritchard Park, which he parlayed that into a secretarial service and a letter shop. So meanwhile, we also got into the answering service business because Ma Bell did all the answering at the time. We have a sister company that is an answering service. And Southern Bell was like tired of that business. They approached him and said, if we just give you all this equipment, like, would you just take this line of business on?
Is this in the era where they're like pushing cords into a wall to answer phones?
Yes.
Wow.
Like the one ringy dingy.
Wow.
Yes. So they loaded him up with that equipment, and he was the consummate entrepreneur, and he was like, what the hell? And got into that business. But the secretarial firm grew into a printing company. Mm-hmm. And then at one point, GE Lighting was our biggest customer, is a huge customer for us. And they were like, well, since you're printing all of these catalogs, couldn't you distribute them? And we were like, of course. Yes, of course we can. So that got us in the fulfillment game. So under my dad's leadership, the company...
And that was in 1958 or so? So it's like 10 years after we moved down here. All of that has happened, 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So many
Velocity.
things.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it in that way. Yeah, so the answering service started in 1955. And then, under my dad's leadership, the commercial printing and mail really grew. So that became above and beyond the biggest part of our company. But the direction we went in was in materials management and logistics, handling trade shows, getting printed materials where they needed to go, doing the same distribution as we did for GE Lighting in 1957. But in the pandemic, if there's anything people were not ordering in the middle of a pandemic, it was brochures. So that business really went off a cliff. I mean, all of our business revolved around events, more than I would have even anticipated. Like if you'd have said, I wouldn't have even really couched it that way. But so...
you might have called it marketing support. And then it just so happened to be that all of the marketing support was really event driven.
Yeah, event driven in some way.
Wow.
So like our big customers were, the Symphony was a big customer. So even if they weren't truly in trade shows, it was event driven somehow. So we pivoted to doing product fulfillment for other North Carolina companies who also pivoted. And then for whatever
Made
reason.
masks, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. We fulfilled a mask right away. And so that was sort of where we shifted. We just went hard into that fulfillment piece. So ultimately, we exited the printing business and went out all in on the fulfillment. So that is what kind of started making us look at this space. We had the answering service, and they were here in what is now the co-working. And, the answering service was like a kindergarten in the best of times. Like one person sneezed and everybody had a cold. So in the pandemic, it really forced us to go remote, which was a good confluence of an improvement in that technology and the being forced, like a good perfect storm of reasoning. So they went home, and then we found ourselves with this space and an empty press room. So it was sort of like, how do we go to the next step with our company? And it was very mission driven to develop something that supports Asheville entrepreneurs and Asheville small business, because our mission is to grow your business. And it just felt very much in line with what we'd always done. So actually transitioning this way, sometimes people kind of act like what we've done is really seismic, which I guess it is. It's certainly a big pivot. But it doesn't feel that insane because it's so true to our mission. And I feel like Ernest, who was my grandfather that founded the company, hence the name, Ernest Daniel's company was super different than my dad's company. And then it's okay that the company be different, as my company.
Hello. Are you watching on YouTube, listening on your favorite podcast player? If you're not on YouTube, perhaps consider it, because behind us, you would notice that we are in an absolutely beautiful space, and that space is our season sponsor, Ernest Readymade Warehousing. And so if you're not familiar with Ernest, it is fantastic. I am joined here by my wife, Sarah Ubertaccio, founder of QB Cucina, and one of Ernest's newest clients.
Yeah, excited to be back on the podcast.
Great to have you back. Episode 110 if you haven't listened before. But what we want to talk about today is why you chose Ernest and what makes Ernest stand out, let's say, compared to finding a new office space in town to fulfill from. As a very high level, Ernest is a 30,000 square foot facility on Sweeten Creek, just south of Asheville. Huge facility, beautiful facility. Why did you choose to go with Ernest instead of any other place in Asheville?
Yeah, well, I have a small growing business, Ecommerce. We sell pasta tools and Italian kitchenware. And we currently outgrew the space that we were in and really needed a different kind of space. And so I love Ernest. I love the fact that as we grow, Ernest can scale with us. So they have different sized co-warehousing spaces. So if we grow bigger, we can just quickly move over to a different space within the same building, which is a really huge time saver. I also really love that they have daily, sometimes multiple times a day, pickups from UPS, FedEx, and USPS. So we don't have to worry about packages getting lost or stolen, and our team doesn't have to drop them off at the post office, and it just saves us all a bunch of time and headache. And also they have temperature controlled rooms, which for a business like us, one of our products is pasta flour. It's really sensitive to temperature. It's really, really important for us to make sure that our products are secure and not getting damaged while they're being stored in our warehouse. And I love all the other amenities. They have a photography studio so we can quickly photograph our products. They have a full break room. They have co-working space that we're able to use for our meetings with team members and other people that may come to see us. And then just the sense of community, being around other small businesses is something that we currently don't have. And I'm really, really looking forward to connecting with others here.
I love that. ErnestReadymade.com if you've not visited that before, or you can check out makingitinashville.com/Ernest. And we have a bunch of information about the partnership we've built for this season, as well as some perhaps special discounts and incentives. If you happen to be a e-commerce business or the right fit for Ernest, you should definitely check out makingitinashville.com/Ernest, ERNEST. And back to the episode. That was a thrill ride. From 1948 to today. I have a couple questions that I would love to attempt to double tap on.
Okay, yeah. I could take a breath at any point, right?
One, your phone call service business was alluded to. What is it? What's the name? What is it called?
It is called Bright Bell Virtual Receptionist. So they handle, as the name implies, virtual receptionist services, like we answer for other offices. And we also do after-hours emergency calls for medical, HVAC, property managers, anybody that for whatever reason the phone has to be answered. So we answer a lot of emergency calls, and we also do a lot of marketing with outbound. We're just now getting into like an outbound space, which has been interesting. It has like really good response in a post do not call world. Yeah. It's like a very different thing. It's not like call at dinner and ruin your night stuff, but it's like warm. It like works in conjunction with cart abandon, especially if it's a high value sale. We might call and say, oh, we noticed you left, etc. in the cart. Like, is there anything that might move the needle and that you might want to buy it? So it's like remarketing, but with like humans.
We might have to have you back on the podcast.
Just to talk
to double and then triple click on that, because I think one of the other business ideas that's come to my mind in my time here is the idea that we, as humans, my wife and I, homeowners, have worked with or attempted to work with so many small business owners in like the service spaces that, for a number of different reasons, have a very bad customer experience. And it's typically because they're the owner operator, call answerer and service provider. And it's hard to do all of those jobs at the same time. And I've thought about doing, a receptionist type technology where one person could theoretically run 10 different businesses inbound concerns, and then just make it feel better, and then they could charge more. Like it'd be such a better thing. So this is very interesting.
I know, which is an updated version on a very classic idea, but like a lot of times people are like, an IVR is fine or voicemail's fine or what. It's really not fine. And when someone picks up the phone and you get a actual person that like warmly handles
soft skills, tiniest bit of soft skills makes a world of difference.
It really does. And in fact, having like an old-fashioned kind of company that offers what feels like an old-fashioned service, it feel like it has never felt more modern. Like never has like engaging on the phone with a human felt like a bigger deal, right? Like I have a friend in business that told me I was going to be replaced by AI, and I challenge that because we're just like making any experience with a company feel that much more valuable. So
I think you're going to be hard pressed to see. I mean, well, AI will affect jobs. I think that it will more likely support roles than wholesale just kill them in the near term, for sure. Like
well, it just gets rid of minutia, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I think that there's certain things that like your call center folks would like lean into AI for like knowing a certain thing fast and not having to, hey, let me put you on hold for a second and actually make 10 phone calls to sort something out. It's just AI answers the question or parses your data.
Because we man chats.
There you
and
go.
so we can man chat or email. And so like, there's like a long thing where AI can just do it.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's a point where
Hey, let's hop on a
it's
phone.
too complicated.
Yeah.
Like AI can't manage it.
Yeah.
And that's when your customer tends to get like furious.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a point where it's like my call is like complex. Like I can't just be answered by the string of like whatever outbound nonsense.
Don't you
you've put in
dare send me.
IVR.
Don't you dare send me to your frequently asked questions page or your support docs.
Right.
I don't want that. I want a human. And I hear that. And I think that there's an opportunity proven a ton of different ways over time where it's like if you can take a bad situation and sort it out, you have a better fan advocate relationship with the customer than you ever had. And it's even better than they expected something good and you did something great. If they expected something good, it went bad and then got sorted out, it's like somehow that's better than it going great to begin with.
Right. It's more, it's impactful.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, they do care. Oh, wow, they like... Anywho, Bright Bell has my...
Well, sorry about that.
No, it's great.
But beat you to it like by 50, by 75 years.
75.
So that's another, the Ernest members like could theoretically like use that service too, right? They could use the virtual receptionist, you know, especially because we're talking about solopreneurs oftentimes or...
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, so that's all that lives right here under this.
The other thing I wanted to double click on, if you don't mind, you said exited the printing business, I believe, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Selling a business. I imagine you sold it. You didn't just shutter it.
Yeah, we sold the business.
Fascinated, captivated, have a million questions. I won't ask all of them. Can you walk me through the process of thinking, hey, we want to sell a part of what we're doing or all of what we're doing? We haven't had many guests who have exited businesses in the past or businesses in the present. And I'm interested to hear your experience with exiting a portion of a business.
Well, it was, like I said, it was the pandemic and some printing companies did okay. There was a point in commercial printing, which is also sort of a dinosaur industry, where there was this moment where general commercial printing was not really that viable. So people had to pick a path. And so some people went down the road of like large format and signage. And some people went down like, pick different routes, packaging. So like packaging printers weren't affected very much at all. Like they were only affected by supply chain because people were still buying up products like crazy. So because our business in particular was so events driven, we were particularly affected. So I kind of got harder and harder just to hold it together, honestly. Like really as things dragged on and on and on. I mean, I know it's hard to remember now, but there was a point when we thought this thing would last like 2 weeks, right? So like it was sort of like, well, we'll hunker down.
Yeah.
And then it just got to the point where we just had nothing to do, frankly, So it just made sense.
Was it a relatively hard asset to sell, or are there private equity groups that are like buying up like distressed printing companies? Oh
no, we sold to another local company that it's called Allegra.
Oh, yeah.
And they are doing like large format signage.
Yeah.
They're born kind of more of mail, and so they weren't seeing the same challenges because they were doing a lot of signage. They were doing a lot of like point of place signage of like, the socially distanced lines on the grounds and everything. So they bought the company, but also took all of our employees. So that was comfortable because it kind of gave our employees somewhere to go. And then it was easier to shift the customers to say, you're still going to be working with your same project managers and it's just right down the road.
Wow.
So that was decently comfortable in terms of that transition because of taking the employees.
Sure. Wow. Okay. I look forward to more conversations about exiting a business with you. I think it's very interesting.
I could write a book.
And the last thing, and it has something to do with that as the concept, is that before we sat down, I kind of parodied my intro to the episode, and you said, I don't identify as an entrepreneur. One of the ways that I define entrepreneur personally, and I don't think I'm alone in it, is that, someone who is attempting to build value by way of a business as the vehicle, and then is open to, willing, able, and enthusiastic about exiting that position, like selling the business. If you're not willing or able to, able because you don't want to, I guess, so not willing to sell your business, I think that you're a small business owner, you're self-employed, perhaps at best, and it's just perhaps semantic difference. But I'm wondering how and why have you reached a place where you don't consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So when we exited the printing business, like where it has landed has been the best for the most amount of stakeholders, and it's landed in the best possible place, I think. But leading up to it was extremely difficult. And it was extremely difficult for me personally to leave that business. I mean, it's hard to explain. You just met me, so it's hard for you to probably have that context, but it's been hard for me to get out from under being considered a printing company. That was really the core of our company. And, I love that stuff. I miss it. I miss the smell of ink. I love that work, but it just got to a point where the company had to move forward. It just was sort of had my hand forced in a lot of ways. But like I said, moving into this has felt good because it's so mission driven and we're really just sort of serving small business in a different way. So it's not as completely in conflict as it seems. And largely, I'm not saying it's perfect in every way. Largely the customers seem happy with the change, and largely the employees have stayed over there and have been happy with it. So
amazing. So far we'll agree to disagree. I will identify you as entrepreneur when I talk about you publicly.
That's not even answering your question. So
okay.
I guess because I'm third generation and I inherited it. I guess that's why I don't really put myself in that same. It's I feel like entrepreneurs in my mind are people that are start with a hot sauce and a dream. I don't know. I see my grandfather's entrepreneurial, and then weirdly, I also see my dad that way. So I don't know why. I don't really see, I feel like I was given this thing with which to do.
Yeah. Well, heard, and I'm not going to challenge that in any serious way, but what I'll just reflect back to you is that you've made, you don't appear to be just a manager, right? If the opposite of someone who, if your working definition of entrepreneurs start with zero, make a thing, fine. If the difference between that and somebody else is a manager takes a thing and just makes minor improvements over time, it's common that you would hear something like not all founders are IPO CEOs or, can report to the SEC in the way that a seasoned executive could just kind of switch into the role. And is that executive an entrepreneur or are they just a CEO? I'll say, sure, I hear that. My read on you is that you've made a number of very hard decisions. You've exited a business, the pivots, the strategy, the execution. I'm excited. You're in my entrepreneur book. last question in history is, at what point did you take over, I want to say the Daniels group or Daniels in general?
It was in 2016 when my dad died. So, I mean, I have worked here in some capacity basically my whole life.
Wow.
So I was like, I guess you would say COO for a time. And there was a point where my dad got really sick and it became really obvious that he was sick. And so it was creating a lot of scuttlebutt, like in the plant. It was creating a lot of like fear and people, I mean, he was going through chemo and radiation. And he like visibly was clearly outwardly sick. So he shocked the hell out of me when I went to him and was like, I'm just going to take the wheel for now. And he surprised me by being relieved and happy. So there was a point where like I quote took over in about 2014, 15, but there was a big difference between him being here and him not being here.
Wow.
Realistically. So
what were some of them, or what underlined that biggest difference? Clearly his presence, and I'm so sorry for your loss. But what was it? More
both my approach to the world and also people's approach to me. Like it was just different when, he was in the picture, if he was in the room, like just the authority I had was different. The authority I didn't have, basically, it was just different. Even if he wasn't doing the actual like nuts and bolts and I was making choices or decisions, but it wasn't the same as.
Yeah, everyone would.
The training wheels came off.
Pull it off.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. To bring us to the third index card and present day, and now looking ahead, a lot is going on in these 60,000 square feet. What are you looking forward to? What are you most excited about? We're almost halfway through 2023. Hopes and dreams for the rest of this year. What do they look like?
Well, that's a big question. So most basically, I am trying to get the co-warehouse filled up because I feel like once we're full and activated, then we're really going to start creating like an ecosystem and a community that I see kind of branching into like having different programming, different types of events with the members, like different, both social events, but also just like bring someone in that's like, how do you maximize your SEO, or how do you market on Instagram, or bring in a tax accountant? When should you be a S Corp or whatever, those kinds of things. And like the way Ernest is envisioned is to really support all facets of e-commerce. So, we have the office bit, we have the on-site photography studio so people can keep their website up to date, and then the space where people can work. And hopefully we've checked all the boxes from the fundamentals standpoint. But then as we move forward, I like to really build out the more cultural parts and really like move forward with that, which will only come with actual community here.
We interrupt this episode with a horror story, an e-commerce horror story that my wife, Sarah Ubertaccio, experienced, but I'm going to preface, she's not alone. You might be an e-commerce store owner. You might have a friend who's an e-commerce store owner. And this story is universal, though specific. Sarah, please take it away.
Yeah, well, I own a small business called QB Cucina, and we sell Italian pasta tools and kitchenware. And in our previous space where we were fulfilling from, one day my employee was packaging up a bunch of packages to ship via UPS, and UPS did not pick up from this location. And so she was going to package them up and take them out to the car and drive them to UPS. Well, it was raining a lot that day.
As it tends to here in Asheville.
Yes, as it tends to here in Asheville. And on her way, taking the dolly out to her car, some packages flew off the dolly, were soaking wet. She was soaking wet. And then she had to repackage them, like go back up to the office and repackage them because they were ruined and couldn't be shipped out. So, yeah.
And I'm so sorry to hear that story. That's a heartbreaker. Now you don't have to worry about that happening anymore because you work at Ernest Readymade warehouse, and they have daily pickups and deliveries from FedEx, UPS, and USPS.
Yes, it's like suddenly we have a valet and concierge at our fingertips, which is amazing. They have daily pickups from all the major shipping carriers, and they have a huge loading dock so we can receive our shipments very easily 24 hours of the day, every day of the week, which is amazing.
To learn more about Ernest Readymade Warehouse, visit makingitinashville.com/Ernest, ERNEST. We have all sorts of information about this season, about our sponsor, Ernest Readymade, and offer a very special incentive for those of you who are small business owners in Asheville who could benefit from this facility. Back to the episode. I think it all sounds very exciting.
Well, I'm excited.
And I'm excited to play some small part in that. So thank you for watching this episode. This is not the end yet of the episode. The questions is when thinking about Ernest and the couple different ways Ernest adds value to the community, and then the Bright Bell, how do you attempt to split your time? What do your days kind of look like? Wearing as many hats as I imagine you wear?
Well, I mean, I have a full leadership team that supports me, so they're doing all the real work. I don't know how to. I mean, some days one is a louder baby than others.
Sure.
Sometimes one will take up more attention than others for whatever reason, but I tend to divide my time pretty much 50-50, really.
Okay.
We have a lot of plans for both companies. We have a lot of big initiatives going on at the same time for both.
Yeah, and I have a sense of your headcount in Bright Bell. If only on the call side, how big of a team is Bright Bell today?
It's about 40 people.
Wow. And how big of a team is Ernest?
Ernest is about, we have some shared.
Sure.
But I would say 6.
Wow. It's a lot of people. I imagine to run a full printing operation, maybe you've operated with more than 46 or so people, and that doesn't feel that intimidating as a number for headcount?
We have had, under my purview, at our most, we had 80.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
It is.
But,
and do you have intention? I mean, as the businesses currently sit, is there a likelihood of increased headcount? I can see capacity increasing in Ernest without necessarily needing a ton more people, but maybe depending on who your tenants are, if they need, more support with fulfillment, perhaps there is some sort of increased demand for employees.
Well, I see some roles that we don't quite need today. I see a role for a community manager.
Sure.
And, possibly more in the back. We're actively trying to grow the fulfillment operation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do kitting and that kind of thing. So when those projects come along, that can be we're calling your cousin and them to come down and help us.
Cousin and them.
That can be an all hands kind of thing. But so we have a few people that we have kind of waiting in the wings sometimes to help with those kind of projects.
And that's a good angle to take these lines of question. Who is a good tenant or good client for fulfillment, good tenant for Ernest? What would be, the height and weight description, so to speak, of the kind of perfect fit?
Well, in a perfect world, in the fulfillment space, there's generally the ones that would do the trade show management and conference. Broadly, cheekily, it's really anybody for whom trade shows has become a big point of pain.
Yeah. So you're thinking you have a booth at whatever craft, quarterly craft thing. You have all the stuff in the booth sent here, and then you deliver it, or what? Maybe more clarity on.
Well, it really looks more like it's organization. They're doing a couple of hundred trade shows a year.
Wow.
So, and they have reps that are going to different shows all over the country, and then they have all these different materials. So we're shipping out like the booth, yes, but also like the pens and the tablecloth but the ones that are doing a lot of their marketing via conferences and trade shows, they have a lot of those things. So their rep, we have like a little storefront that we build for them, and their rep will jump online, and they have a show in Dallas, and they go and they're like, I need these pens and I need this pop-up banner, blah, blah. And then we have it waiting for them in Dallas, and then with a return label, and they box it up and ship it back here. And then we do a QC, put it back on the shelf. So anyone who's doing enough shows that it's aggravating.
Wow.
That there's like someone is pained by it, right? Just managing the comings and goings. And then we also do product fulfillment. We do Cirilla. She sends kits to buyers, like the buyers at a grocery store, or she sends them to influencers. So we kit those, but then also send out like her big distribution orders, like they're skidded.
Interesting.
So we have several products that we do, like onesie twosie. So subscription boxes are great, any kit kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. And then for this side of the house, who's a good-looking fit?
This side of the house, in the co-warehouse, it's really, it's imagined to be an e-commerce. It isn't always, everyone back here isn't e-commerce. Like people are constantly surprising me actually. But so it's envisioned as an e-commerce that is starting to scale and is really frankly looking to scale. Like it's probably someone who is trying to move the needle and grow their business. And this would provide them a vehicle to both get out of the garage and like kind of move forward and grow. It would allow them to be able to rain make, to be able to hire, you know, to kind of like level up. So it's sometimes people have said, well, wouldn't this be like a good art space? Not really, because it's not really just like, it is workspace, but it's like space to move your product forward and like expand, house your inventory, fill your orders, and that would benefit from these things, would benefit from a community, would benefit from our fulfillment support, would benefit from a loading dock.
And pallets and being able to receive when you're not there. And like I think of my wife, who will talk about at some point throughout the course of this season, I'm sure, but just the idea that we have these dreams of being able to travel and continue our businesses. And right now, when she's got a lot of time, money invested into products, you need to ship them to people. And at a certain point, you know, that becomes a major linchpin, the ability to continue to ship if we're abroad is a hard thing to do. So there are a lot of value here that we see. Two questions, or one question for both sides. What do contracts look like? Because one of the things that surprised me, or that I was most kind of interested in, is that seems to be very flexible, at least at time of recording, that you can go month to month on this side of the house. How do you set up relationships on fulfillment at large, and you know, what does it look like to be a tenant in Ernest generally?
Well, for the stations, they can be as short as 1 month, or we have annual leases, or 6 month.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, really, if you consider an entrepreneur who is outgrowing the garage, it's really a heavy lift to stare down the barrel of a 5-year triple net personal guarantee. You know, it's a big jump to go from garage to traditional commercial lease. And this kind of fills that gap. Like if you called a commercial realtor and said, I need 500 square feet for like 4 months, they'd tell you to pound sand. But like this gives you that opportunity to also, I guess, flex with your idea. And it takes a lot of the risk off the table. Like you can come, you can try, like you can see if you can scale this thing. And if you can't, you haven't personal guaranteed yourself into a 60-month triple net lease, you know?
Yeah. Cool. I wanted to make sure we highlighted that because that was very compelling to me. And I completely agree. I think entrepreneurs, small business owners are, I'd say, bold and are willing to take risks almost by definition. But it's the 10-year, 5-year like, I don't know what's going to happen now. I know right now I need space. I know right now I'm making these widgets, and it seems to be working. But like 60 months from now, the world could be totally different. I could need 1 million square feet.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And haven't we all learned that the hard way?
Yeah.
But I mean, we see Ernest as kind of a launch pad. Like, the walls are demountable, so you can scale here. Like, if you're in 250 today and you grow, like, I can put you in 500, I can do 750. The time would come that you would be up and out of here, that you would move on to your next thing and have your whole own facility. This gives you that middle ground.
Yeah. I love it. We will, if you're listening to the podcast, it is worth checking out the Making It in Asheville YouTube channel. There will be video, perhaps in this episode, but definitely on our channel somewhere for you to find, of the space and how it both looks beautiful on the co-working side and how it's so incredibly functional and smart on the co-warehousing side. I am a very big fan, and we're very excited. So it hasn't necessarily been said explicitly at this point in this particular conversation, but you are sponsoring the season of the Making It in Asheville podcast, and we're so glad to have you. I think that you've said it now 2 or 3 times, the idea that it's so mission driven, and I am in complete alignment. I think that your intention to support entrepreneurs or small business owners or just people in Asheville who are trying to build something is so wonderfully in alignment with what we're trying to do with Making It in Asheville, which is tell the stories of those people so that people are also inspired and supported and feel like there is a community of folks here who are working really hard to figure it out. And, entrepreneurship, small business owning can be a relatively lonely feeling endeavor. And we're both working towards solving for that in some way. Mine feels a lot smaller in footprint at the very least than your effort, but it's really exciting to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for featuring it and giving us this opportunity. I also want to say right fast that, like, I haven't said this up till now either, but we call it a ready-made warehouse. Like, that's a part of our spiel here, is it's a ready-made warehouse. Because, like, the thought is, because everything is all in, it's like one monthly rental fee. Like, that includes everything: coffee, parking, co-working, photo studio, you name it. So that is also like an element where it's not nickel and diming you. It's like, this is what it costs. That's your monthly. Like, you can also plan, you can budget, exactly what your costs are going to be. And there's like no overhead. So it's like a subscription to a warehouse.
And I think that's great language for it. And I think that's a great call out, because there's a tendency to go, you're thinking that you're going apples to apples. You say, my rent is $1,400. My rent there is $1,500. I'm paying less now. I have better value. But you're parking at the municipal parking for $85 a month, and you pay for your own Wi-Fi at $125, and all of these things end up adding up. And I think it's a ready-made warehouse is great language for it, and I think it's a great call out. Anything else that you're feeling in your heart or your mind that you want to add before we give people links?
Oh, I hate when people ask me questions like that, because I never have a good answer.
So the answer is no. I feel really
I feel fully with nothing in my head or heart. But I will say, though, we're happy to tour anybody that wants to come down here and, wants to see it for themselves.
Yeah.
They don't have to be stuck with the video.
I will champion that as a next step for interested parties. I mentioned at the very top of this episode that you are one of the businesses that I flagged the second I saw it. And I had kind of tracked what was going on. And at some point I sent it to Sarah, and I don't know if I necessarily gave much context for what I thought I had seen, but I was like, ooh, maybe this is interesting for QB. And it took months or so, and then Sarah sent you back to me. And it wasn't until we actually showed up and came and saw the space that it really clicked. So we'll work on something. So if you haven't been to the Making It in Asheville website in a while, you might want to. We'll have a makingitinasheville.com/Ernest page where on it, we're going to talk about this season. We're going to talk about this episode. We're going to talk about all the things that we're working on together. And we'll talk offline, but we'll see if there's some cool special bonus thing we can afford to listeners who come check out the space and think that it's a good fit for them and their business.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I also feel compelled to say, like, one more also, is that the photo studio and these meeting rooms and the co-working space are available to rent just in and of themselves. Like if someone just needed the photo studio for a day or half day, or like if someone's like, I really just want more traditional co-working, we do offer it. So there's really no co-working on this end of town, and that is an option. So I feel compelled to insert that and say, like, you could still come down here and rent these spaces.
Well, I'm so glad I asked what was on your heart or your mind, because we might not have got that otherwise. The last, I guess, closing things are, how would people find Ernest on the internet, or if they were looking for you?
On the internet, we are at ernestready.com, and it is Ernest like the name, ERNEST. It's cute because it's a double entendre. Sometimes less cute because people are dying to put an A in it, but it's ERNESTready.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
And our virtual receptionist is brightbellco.com.
brightbellco.com. Yeah. We will have links to everything and anything that was discussed in the show notes page for this podcast. They will be linked on every podcast player and in the description of this YouTube video. Thank you so much for your time and for hosting us in this beautiful space, Jami.
Thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure.